From the 11th to the 15th century, somewhere in the hills of Zimbabwe, a mysterious stone city flourished. Today, we know it as Great Zimbabwe, but to the people who built it, they knew it simply as home. It was a great capital of immense wealth, a trading hub where merchants from all over Africa came to buy and sell their wares. And it is here that we meet our first subject. They were called the Shona, a Bantu people who lived in what is today central and southern Zimbabwe. They spoke a language known as Shona, which to this day is spoken by the majority of Zimbabweans. But how they came to be in Zimbabwe is lost to history. All we have are stories handed down through generations, stories of a mystical land far to the east where the Shona people originated from before migrating into Zimbabwe. According to legend, they were led there by a divine bird, a giant bird, so large it looked like a plane flying through the clouds, yet with feathers that shone like gold and eyes that burned red hot like coals. The bird would fly ahead of them every morning, lighting up the sky like a flaming torch, and every evening it would return to rest atop the royal residence. This mystical guide became known as the Zimbabwe bird, and it was said to be the direct link between the Shona people and their gods. It guided them to fertile lands and promised them a glorious future. But without warning, the Zimbabwe bird vanished from sight one day, leaving the Shona people confused and scared. As soon as it disappeared, misfortune befell them. Crops withered in the fields, people fell sick and died in the streets. Some say the god was angry at his followers for not building him a proper monument. Others say he was furious over a broken sacred taboo. Either way, after the disappearance of the bird, everything went wrong. But still, the Shona people persevered and rebuilt their lives until another divine messenger appeared to them in a dream. He told them that their god was pleased with their hard work and devotion and had decided to return. He instructed them to build him a house in the shape of a bird made out of the finest stone. This time, however, their god would not perch atop the structure but would rather dwell within it. That's when the Shona people got to work constructing a massive stone complex in the shape of a giant bird sitting on a hill. The structure took years to complete and was made up of two distinct parts, an inner city and an outer city. At the center of the inner city sat a huge stone tower in the shape of a bird's head, while the body and wings extended outwards into a sprawling complex of palaces, temples, and residential areas. The outer city was just as impressive, with its own set of towers and walls, but it was mostly used as a marketplace where merchants from all over Africa came to trade their goods. It was here that the Shona people became incredibly wealthy, trading gold that they mined in the nearby hills for luxury items from merchants who traveled across the Indian Ocean. And it was also here that their god returned. Now, whether or not he actually did return is a matter of faith. There is no archaeological evidence that any kind of deity actually visited the site. But that didn't stop the Shona people from building more and more monuments in the shape of birds. Throughout the city, they constructed towers, pillars, walls, and even a gateway that resembled the legendary bird. Then suddenly, after only a few centuries, it was abandoned. No one knows exactly why. The most popular theory among archaeologists is that plague or drought forced the Shona people to abandon their great city. However, according to legend, it might have been something else entirely. You see, the Shona people tell a story about a tricksy trickster god named Mbuya. One day he was traveling through the countryside when he stumbled upon a field of maize or corn. The owner wasn't around, so he decided to help himself to some of the maize and plant it in his own garden. When the owner returned and saw that someone had stolen some of his maize, he angrily confronted Mbuya, God. At first, Mbuya pretended to be clueless, but when the man threatened to expose him as a tricksy god, Mbuya cursed him, saying that he would never grow food again. Mbuya then went to the king and told him that if he didn't sacrifice a virgin to Mbuya, the entire kingdom would suffer the same fate as the farmer. The king refused, so Mbuya put his plan into action. He unleashed a swarm of locusts that ate every single plant in the kingdom, forcing the Shona people to flee into the hills where they lived as nomads, wandering from place to place, eating whatever they could find. It wasn't until many years later that a new tribe, the Karanga, arrived in Zimbabwe. The Shona people told them the story of Mbuya's curse and asked them to help lift it. The Karanga agreed, and together the two tribes performed a ritual to banish Mbuya and restore fertility to the land. Afterwards, the Karanga settled down in Great Zimbabwe and began rebuilding their lives. But soon afterwards, the mysterious Zimbabwe bird appeared again, this time to inform the Karanga that the Shona people had lifted the curse. The Karanga king was overjoyed and immediately sent a delegation to meet with the Shona leader to discuss lifting the curse. On the way, they passed by the Great Stone City and decided to settle down there. From there, they continued to build the city until it was 3 times larger than when the Shona people left it. Eventually, though, the Karanga king started acting strangely. They began taking on multiple wives, something that had been forbidden since the days of the Shona people. Soon, the city became overcrowded and the people grew discontent with the king's new ways. That's when the Zimbabwe bird appeared once again, this time to inform them that their god was angry at the king's behavior. If they didn't do something to fix it, their god would abandon them just like he had the Shona people. The Karanga people panicked and quickly assembled an elite military force to capture the king and bring him back to the capital. When they arrived, they found him in the company of a beautiful woman, a woman who was not one of his wives. The Karanga soldiers dragged the king back to the capital, but on the way, he escaped and fled into the hills. The Karanga people searched for him everywhere, but he was never found. And that's when their god finally abandoned them. All of a sudden, the rain stopped, crops withered in the fields, and the people fell sick. Those who survived fled to the hills and lived in caves, while those who stayed behind slowly perished from starvation and disease. Only a few dozen people remained in the city when the Portuguese arrived in the 15th century. And when they did arrive, they found nothing but ruins. Today, we call it Great Zimbabwe, and it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Archaeologists have uncovered many interesting artifacts at the site, including pieces of gold jewelry and ornaments made out of ivory and crystal. Unfortunately, looters have ransacked most of the site, stealing anything of value. So all that remains are a few stone structures and a bunch of legends. But what is really fascinating about Great Zimbabwe is that we don't really know how it was built. We don't know how the Shona people managed to construct such impressive buildings without using mortar or any kind of cement. All we have are guesses based on archaeological evidence and oral traditions. Some scholars believe that the Shona people brought their knowledge of stone building with them from their mythical homeland to the east. Others believe that they learned the techniques from the Egyptians or the Phoenicians, both of whom had trading posts along the East African coast. But the truth is, we don't know. We also don't know why the Shona people built their capital in the shape of a giant bird, nor do we know why it was abandoned so suddenly. Perhaps plague or drought forced them to leave, or maybe it was something more sinister. Maybe it was Mbuya, the tricksy trickster god, or maybe it was a punishment from the true god for abandoning the sacred taboo. Whatever the reason, the Shona people left Great Zimbabwe, and their legacy was passed down through generations in the form of stories and songs. When the Karanga people arrived, they found the ruins of Great Zimbabwe and decided to make it their own. For a few decades, things were good, but soon the kings began taking on too many wives, and the god grew tired of it. When he sent the Zimbabwe bird to warn them, the Karanga people panicked and tried to stop the king, but he escaped and they were abandoned. Great Zimbabwe is a truly fascinating place, and I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about it. If you did, please consider subscribing because it really helps me out a lot. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. A huge thank you to my supporters for helping to make these videos possible. Be sure to check out on more historical stories of various cultures around the world. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.